What's going on? What's going on, guys? Wow. Welcome back to a live broadcast of Kidney Disease Education Moment. This has been the last 45 minutes to an hour has been really harrowing. My daughter was in a car accident and I had to abruptly stop my last broadcast with my guest, who I definitely apologize to, and prayerfully we can reschedule that show with Trish Phillips. The devil is busy. And so fortunately, when I was on my way to pick my granddaughter up, my daughter called me and told me that the police had came and no report was needed and that they could go on their way. She's okay. I'm just looking at, she just sent me pictures of her car, the damage. It's to a driver's side. It's really messed up, but thank God she's okay and she's able to drive away. Now, this broadcast, since I had Trish Phillips and we were going to talk about her story and kidney transplant, I just wanted to kind of keep going on along that topic. And here to help talk about this, we have a host of people to help me talk about kidney transplant, a treatment for kidney disease. A great group of people. We got joining me all the way from Hooper, Utah, host of the hit show Warriors Quest, Jared A. Brown. Hey, Jared, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing well, brother. Thanks, man.
Yeah, and without further ado, we have kidney warrior, transplant recipient of, I believe, 2 or 4 years. She'll tell you. Host of the hit show Lisa Baxter Show, and also been on dialysis for 12 years, Lisa Baxter. Hey, Lisa, how you doing?
Hi, Lisa.
Alive and kicking. How y'all doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Thank you for joining this ad hoc post show. As you heard, I tried to get my regular guest back, but I know she mentioned she had to work tomorrow and other things to do. So I definitely look forward to bringing it back. But I was so amped up in talking with her that I didn't want to let people who are watching this who may be potential donors or may be on the transplant list. So I wanted to talk about kidney transplant, a treatment for kidney disease, because we know it's not a cure, it's a treatment. Now, Lisa, can you just tell Jared and I, what was the journey like for you when you started to on the kidney transplant list? Can you walk us through? Was it a quick process? Was it a slow process? Can you walk us through that process? And was it frustrating? Did you fall any of the disparities of transplant? Share that story with us.
Sure, why not?
Nice.
Listen, okay. I was on dialysis a good minute, and I don't know. My family and I, we were all talking about transplants and things like that, and dialysis and stuff like that. 'Cause you know, I had 6 siblings on dialysis, so we was always kicking things around. And
wait a minute, you had 6 siblings on dialysis?
Well, yeah, I had 6 siblings, 2 aunts, an uncle, and my mother-in-law. All were on dialysis.
Wow.
Jared, have you ever heard of anything like that?
No, man, that's keeping it in the family. Wow.
We didn't want to keep it in our family. We ain't had no choice. That polycystic kidney disease was something else.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
with something else. But my husband and my archbishop, he's an archbishop now, Robert Rochford, they talked me into going on a transplant list. I really was fine on dialysis because I didn't, only thing I had was low blood pressure, calcium deficiency. I had that since I was little. So, you know, I didn't see no need for it because my husband, he was a perfect match. He was going to give me a kidney. He snuck and got on the list while I was getting on the list. He snuck and got, you know, like tested for me, you know. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted
That's a true
somebody to be
gentleman.
healthy in the family,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But he did it anyway. He was perfect. And then at some point, he developed high blood pressure and couldn't do it. But while all of that went on, I was on the list. And because of the years of being on dialysis pushed me to the top of the list. So I was like number 4 or something like that, they were telling me.
No, I understand that, but when you went for testing, what was that process like?
Oh, that. Okay, all right. Let me drive you up in there. All right. Well, you remember that. Well, when you go for like the blood and you know, the constant going and you know, talking to your coordinator, because you always got to talk to the coordinator, listen what the coordinator says and everything. I went to get on that treadmill thing, and you know, they give you all of those different tests. I'm running and carrying on out of
Stress
breath,
test?
whatever. Yeah, the stress test. And they shouldn't have picked that day, but no, everything came out all right. You know
No,
what I mean?
but
But
right, but how long did it take you when you first started the process until you got on the list? How long did
what
that take?
I'd say it didn't take long. It really didn't take as long as I thought. I'd say about maybe 3 or 4 years. I wasn't on the list that long and I wasn't trying that
No, no,
hard.
no, no. I think you misunderstood me. I said, wait a minute. So from the time it took you to start the process for kidney donor, it took you 4 years to get on the list.
No, I waited about that long.
You
Right,
waited
but how
4 years,
long did it
but
take you to go through the process to actually get on the list, the whole blood routine, everything, the
Ah,
test?
okay. I feel you. I feel you. All right. I say about it was going fast until I ran into some snags. You will run into some
So
snags.
what was those snags? That's what I want to hear.
All right, let me get okay. You should have said
If it's
snag, and then I
okay.
would have gave it to you. Now the snag thing was they saw on my one of my sonograms for my breast, they saw a shadow and they wanted to biopsy, and the guy wouldn't biopsy a shadow. So that was one. I went to the
okay.
GYN, and the GYN said she didn't get it all. And then they thought I had breast cancer, all kind of crazy stuff that I didn't have. And believe it or not, this week I have to go for another sonogram for my breast. They keep saying they don't see anything, but they aggravating me, and I already got the transplant. But just to be sure, I'm going. But I didn't like the fact that, you know, going through tests and then they made mistakes. Now, she said she didn't get enough. I already jumped on the table. I don't know, you ain't not a woman, but I don't like that and I don't like the dentist. So you got to go to all of these different things that you
Right.
have to deal with. And
Right.
that bothered me because they
All
messed
right.
up on the test and I had to do it over.
Wow. So we have another person here to join us to help talk about this topic
Okay,
is
good.
Don P. Edwards, Executive Director of New York Champion CKD. Wait a minute, I'm sorry. New York State CKD Champions. What's going on, Don? Sorry about that. How you doing? We
Oh,
can't
we
hear
can't
you.
hear.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Dawn. Lady D.
Okay, we're having some technical difficulties with Dawn. So as soon as she gets that corrected, we'll bring her back on. So now, Lisa,
Uh-huh.
um, so going through those hiccups, how long did that set you back from getting on the list?
Okay, let me see. I say maybe because I got upset and then I was dealing with my husband who had cancer, stage 4 colon cancer. So between trying to get those tests done, still doing dialysis, holding a full-time job, and going with him with his chemo, I say maybe a year or so. Because even after
Wow.
he passed away, I didn't really get called to a year later after he passed away in 2015.
So it took you from the time you first started to get on the list a year to actually get on the list.
Yeah, because I think it was like 10 years. 10 years when it was 10 years before I got I was on 10 years on dialysis, and I didn't get it to, the 12 years. So it was like 2 years, I'd say, all together.
That it took you to get on the list? I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying, Lisa. How long from the time you started the process of
No,
get
Steve, I got you. No, Steve,
Oh,
I got
okay.
you. I'd say the process of, you're talking about the test and all of that. When I completed
And the
everything and I was
hiccup.
on the list,
Right.
all right, I say that was 2 years, and then 2 years after that was when I actually got the kidney. So 2
So
years.
it actually took you 2 years to get on the list.
About 2 years, yes.
Wow. Hey, Jared, what do you think about that? Wait a minute. Before you answer that, let's bring back Don P. Mormon, see if she has her technical difficulties straight.
I hope so.
Hey, Don.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, we can hear you, Lady
Thanks
D.
for joining us.
Hi, Don.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, so Jared, what do you think about that? I mean, have you met any warriors on your show that it took less time than 2 years or more than 2 years to get on the transplant list?
The many of the warriors I've interviewed, it's taken well over a year and a half or so. So 2 years doesn't sound too long, but and I can't name any names, but I think there have been some that it's taken less.
Don, could you answer that? How long did it take you when you first got your transplant from the time to start the process to get on the list?
It didn't take long. I would say it took about, boy, I got to try to remember back that far. I would say it probably took a few months after all of the tests and everything were completed for me to be active on the list. But I waited 7 years for my transplant. I waited 7 years to be.
You waited 7 years, but it took you about several months just to get on the list?
Right, yes.
Lisa had mentioned she had some hiccups along the way. What about you? Did you have any barriers or anything that kind of got in your way when you started that process?
No, I was young and I was healthy, and I didn't have anything, any other comorbidities or no other diseases or anything. So when I went and got all of the tests done, everything went smooth, and so that didn't inhibit my progress, to getting on the list. I just had to wait so long for a match.
So Lisa, before you got on the transplant list, after your husband and who you say else talked you into it, the pastor?
Archbishop Robert Rochford.
Archbishop Robert Rochford. Okay. Did from that point, did you try to look for a living donor, or was that in your mind to seek a living donor?
Well, 4 people at my job had offered. At least they came to me and asked me that, did I want them to do it? And, I spoke to them about it and told them that's a serious thing. If you really want to do it, I would take it. But I told them about the tests and the things that they go to. I just didn't want them to want to be a hero and not know what it would take. I gave them the information of Mount Sinai Hospital. I also told them, what it would take. And it dwindled down from 4 people to 1. And then the 1 looked like it ran and got scared. But I did understand. And at the same time, I felt good that they even wanted to try.
right?
Lisa, did
Was
you
it?
say Mount Sinai Hospital?
Yeah,
That is awesome.
yeah.
Wow.
I
So
love that
Lisa,
name.
was that discouraging when you saw that? I mean, in the beginning to see four people uh come forward and then hide the window like that. What was that discouraging to see that?
No, no. I was a little bit surprised, but I didn't really understand because that's you talking about an organ, and I think one of them only had one child, and people want to have more children. The other one never got married. So I understood that. Like I said, I was healthy on dialysis, except for the passing out once in a while and the low calcium and things of that nature. I really was healthy while I was on dialysis. I lived a full life
Mhm.
while I was on it. I didn't let it
Mhm.
kill me or take me out. At least I
Mhm.
tried everything I could.
Okay. So Don, let me ask you
Mhm.
a question. You just heard Lisa say she had four people step up and it kind of the window, and Lisa was saying that one of them had kids, and kind of like said, if you want to do it, fine. If not, fine. But they came to her. My question to you is, because you deal with kidney disease as well, do you think some people may impulsively ask someone or say they want to donate uh,
Yeah,
for that moment, not thinking of the ramifications, and they may not, they may in their, they may have good intentions, but they really don't know what they're exactly saying, and they're getting someone else's hope high and not. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, so
I
I'm
understand
saying,
exactly what
like, did
you're
the
saying.
people? Do you feel, Lisa? Do you feel like the people just said that to say it? Did they have good intentions to go all the way through? And is that
yeah,
common, Don?
It's
Yeah,
common in
I
my
think
opinion.
generally speaking that people have good intentions,
yeah, they
but
do.
I mean, like Lisa said, this is a major surgery. This is a part of your body. There's so many other parameters that that you have to consider
Yeah,
before going through with the surgery. I mean, people don't know that if you have hypertension or if you already have diabetes or if you're overweight or something like that, they don't know the barriers to donating. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that once people offer and then they find out, what it all entails, I mean, you have to be understanding if somebody decide after finding out,
yeah,
what the after effects could be, that they would possibly get frightened or back down or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah,
So you have to understand that. And
yeah,
especially in the African American community. I mean, we're already predisposed to hypertension, diabetes, being overweight. A
yeah,
lot of people have those sickle cell traits, lupus. We have these chronic diseases already, in our bloodlines and whatever. And once you already have these things, you're no longer a candidate to donate.
So
So
yeah.
let me ask
yeah.
you this question, Don.
Mhm.
I have literature in front of me.
Okay.
All right, that says transplanted kidneys can last 12 to 15 years on average. During this time, dialysis is not needed. It can feel like a return to life before kidney failure. With that being said, I know you had a rejection with your transplant.
Right.
Now, that's under the 12 to 15 years. My question is, do you think some of this literature over embellish the transplant experience and not really giving the full details?
Well, I always said that the literature that you read and the little movies or whatever that they show you and videos that they show you about transplant, they want to encourage the patient to go forward with the operation. we all know, like scientifically or statistically speaking, quote unquote, that a kidney transplant is the best treatment option for kidney failure. Okay, that's a given. However, everyone is different. Every individual is different. And just like
Yeah.
they say, you said the literature said it can last 12 to
Mm-hmm.
15
I
years.
emphasize can.
Right. Just like you
Yes.
said the word can, that also means it cannot. So
Mm.
you have to all you got to read between the lines, and you have to really interpret what it is that you read and you hear and ask questions. Now, I got my transplant and it wasn't a great experience for me. I'm an individual and I have plenty of friends that are doing great with their kidney transplants. They've had them for 10 years, 8 years, and after 6 I had problems at the very beginning and I had problems, going along. I had several rejection episodes. So it's not to discourage anyone, but I just feel like the whole story must be told in order for someone to
Amen.
be able to make an informed decision about what they
Yes.
want and what's best for them. Because
Yes.
once
Yes.
you get
Yeah.
that organ and you go through all of that surgery and recovery, and it's not what you thought it was going to be, or it's not all that it was cracked up to be, it's very discouraging and very depressing,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you go through that episode and you have to go back on dialysis. It's
Mm.
absolutely
My
devastating.
God.
Mm-hmm.
It's
My God.
absolutely devastating when you have to return to dialysis. So
Right.
I just really think that we have a responsibility, not only for moral standards, but just for education's purposes, to
Yeah.
give them the whole story. That you can have rejection episodes, and rejection episodes are frightening, but in most cases you can recover from a rejection episode. It doesn't have to be a chronic rejection. You want to
Yes.
give people hope, but you want to tell the
That's
truth
right.
because a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people become disillusioned with the whole transplant experience, and they hear these horror stories from patients that didn't have a good experience, and they say, well, later for it, I'm not going to do it at all. And that's not
Well,
a good attitude either. You always want to give it a try because you know
yeah.
that it's the healthiest choice for you, but you want to go in with your eyes open.
I
Mm-hmm.
heard I heard many horror stories. I was surprised I still went through with it because I heard a lot of horror stories and stuff like that. And the person asked, "Take it back out." You know, I
Right.
mean, I have a transplant, and I am not sorry that I got it. I wasn't sorry that I had a dialysis experience, even though I got tired of being on dialysis. I
Right.
made sure I still lived regardless. But the kinks that you get once you get the kidney, it's some kinks. That's why I went live on one of my shows and I showed them the thing in my neck, the thing with the tubes everywhere
Right.
they went. I went.
Good.
I like being graphic. I showed when I was on dialysis. I showed when I got the transplant tubes in my nose. It wasn't an attractive sight, but I wanted to be the guinea pig to show them this is what you might go through. Even when I wrote my books, this
I
is what
like that.
you might deal with.
Yeah, you
Mm-hmm.
gotta sometimes you gotta be
Yeah,
raw.
you have to do it that way. We have to be
You
well
do.
informed.
You do.
Jared, Jared, when you hear stories like Dawn and you hear Lisa's story, and then on the other end, you hear stories like one of your guests, Will Mustafa, who had 4 kidneys. What goes through your
All over.
mind? You're kind of like in the middle. I mean, what goes through your mind when you hear one story where maybe someone doesn't have access to get multiple organs like that, and then you hear a story where a gentleman uh, has 4 transplants.
I wish I had all the answers, and I wish that God gave me all the answers. Sometimes life would be easier, but I'd like to think that God knows us better than anybody,
Mm.
and uh, that Dawn is such an amazing person, and the way you explained what happened in your experience with rejection, I just admire your strength and your toughness, Dawn. I
Mm.
mean, honestly, I think that, and I can't answer why God allowed her to have a rejection. I don't know why that happened, but I do know that she sounds like she's become stronger. And for Lisa, for having been through what she did for 12 years, I have a lot of respect for you. I mean, wow. I mean, a kidney warrior through and through. And um, I think that each story is a little bit different. And I don't know why things happen. And I don't know why the universe gives us certain things and why the universe doesn't give us certain things. But I think that some of us either become better because of what, the cards we've been dealt, or some of us become bitter. It's all
Mm-hmm.
really on how you react. And I think that these ladies have reacted very well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, Don, when you first started the process for transplant, did you seek out to any of your relatives?
No, none of my relatives were eligible candidates. I have a small family.
Mm.
I only have one biological sister, and at the time she was too young, and she's pre-diabetic. Both of my parents had hypertension. My biological father had already had strokes. My stepfather was on dialysis. So I didn't have anybody to ask.
Wow.
So I just had to go for
Right,
what I know and get on the list.
Wow.
right. I had this literature on my last show pertaining to African Americans and transplant. So, Don, what you just said about you couldn't go to your family because they may have had their own health issues. Same with Lisa with polycystic kidney disease, and so no wonder that the need for organ is going to be higher, and that
Right.
the pool for donors is going to be lower.
Correct.
Wow.
And if that's the case, I mean, can we say that if it continues to go like this, nothing can really be done about that? Because if these issues occur in African Americans, like diabetes, hypertension, lupus, um, sickle cell, or any other chronic disease that may cause or may put you at risk
Mm.
for kidney disease, will there ever be a time where it will be an equal match of recipients and donors?
I don't think so, Steve. Not unless we as a society get healthier. I think that there's a lot of
Well said.
economic and social reasons that we're in the health crisis that we're in now. We got to think about, like we talk about this all the time, that we live in a microwave society where we're doing our food shopping, in Family
Right.
Dollar, or we're eating all of the wrong foods. We're going to the
Yeah.
fast food and we're eating a lot of takeout. All of these things,
Wow.
Right.
they lead to an
Exactly.
unhealthy lifestyle in the first place. Unless we go back to the way that it was when our parents were growing up, where we had dinners at the table at home
Mm.
and we grew our own vegetables in the backyard, or when we go
Yes.
back to that wholesome type of
Amen to that.
society that is long gone, we're all going to be predisposed to these chronic illnesses, and it's only going to get worse unless the the quality and the standards of the foods that we eat improve, or until we as a people decide that we're not going to put this stuff inside of our bodies anymore.
Yes, that's so true.
Lisa,
Yes.
do you know where your transplant kidney came from? Did you know the donor or ever met the donor's family?
No, I didn't meet the donor. I knew it was a lady that had a heart attack, and her son gave me the kidney, and I was only able to write a letter of thanks to them, and that was the most that letter. I was so glad to be able to write it. I wish I couldn't meet them. I wanted to and wish I could, but if that was the only way I can thank him, I took my time, and I had to really give him that thanks, because I thought that was a beautiful thing he did. You know, sometimes it's hard giving somebody else your family's organ.
Let me ask you this, Lisa. Do you know the race of the donor?
You know, I might have known it. I don't know. I've been so busy and running around. I just know it was a woman with a heart attack. I assumed they were African American, but I'm not really sure. I think I do have it written somewhere in the house.
I know my donor was Caucasian. She was a medical student at the hospital, and she caught a bleeder on the brain and died instantly.
Wow.
She was a young white woman, and we were a 5 out of 6 antigen match.
Wow.
And so they, you know, it was a great match. So we would have thought that, you know, that my transplant would have went better, but it wasn't the kidney that was my problem. It was the medication that caused my complications.
Wow.
Wow.
Lisa, when you hear stories like Dawn, or you're in one of the transplant groups and you hear maybe someone saying they're in the hospital because they're going through a rejection episode or something's going on with their transplanted kidney, does that thought ever go through your mind or stay in the back of your mind that you hope this don't happen to you, or you just keep it moving like everything is going to be all right, and that's not even a thought that even comes into your mind?
Well, I think when I first got it, I had different thoughts, but I just trust God. I pray and I trust God, and I think it'll be with me to the duration. That's where my faith goes with it. But I always try to prepare for everything, and sometimes you might not be as prepared as you think you are.
Right.
Can I say one thing, Steve?
Sure.
Well, maybe. I'm a donor. I'm a donor. If God forbid anything happened to me, I'm a donor. And maybe if more people found out, even if you were on dialysis or had a transplant, the rest of your organs are good enough to be a donor, maybe we might have more people on the list.
Very true. She makes a good point.
Wow.
And one last thing, or not the last, but the thing I want to say is I like this experience having the transplant, but it wasn't always easy, having the things that had to be taken out of, stuff taken out of your neck, and, catheters in here and there, and all kind of holes, every hole you got kind of thing. That was really hard. And even having the stent hooked to your bladder because you haven't urinated in a couple of years, and then you had to do it, and then they had to take it out. Ouch. Kind of thing. But I think the biggest thing is that the fact that you can have the transplant a lot of years and it goes successfully, and then you find out either you don't have insurance, you lose insurance, or the people don't back you, they change their mind after you went through all of that. I probably wouldn't have never, ever, 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 ever bothered, because I was fine on dialysis. I really was.
So if you're, God forbid, if you were to have a rejection, had to go back on dialysis, you would be okay with that?
I would have to live with it like I lived with it on 12 years.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Would you do home dialysis?
Me?
Yes.
No. I like being in the center. I always did.
Hmm.
My siblings did it both. I never wanted to try home or anything like that because I didn't want to take my husband through that. We both had jobs. We worked very hard. I didn't want to have him to watch me like another job. So I didn't have any problem with going in the center. I really didn't. If it was dirty, I just would leave or go to another one or find one that worked.
Right. So let me give you some hope, Lisa. I mean, not to say you don't have it. All right. I don't want to say it like that, but I know I asked you, do you have doubts about your kidney rejecting because you may hear other stories? Well, I want to give you a story of a gentleman who's watching this broadcast right now.
Right.
He's in the state of Maryland, Western Maryland. He's the longest living transplant recipient, African American, in the state of Maryland. His name is George Franklin. It's been, I believe, 44 years.
44 years, I think.
Yeah.
44 years, Lisa.
Wow.
And to anyone else watching who's had a transplant, this gentleman, I mean, he has a great attitude towards life. He's taken care of right now, or he's adopted Oscar Howe, part of Brenda Cortez's How the Owl series.
That's so cool.
Oh, yeah. Nice. All right.
Yeah. And Trish Phillips, she had How the Owl with her, but because of the unexpected situation that happened with me, we didn't get the opportunity to meet him as well. But Lisa, I just wanted to say that the show and to everyone, I mean, everyone is different. So just because someone else may have had experience doesn't mean, you know, someone else is going to have the same experience. Just like Chef Javon, I guess no one would believe that he said he doesn't take his transplant medicines no more. And it's been maybe 9 or 8 or 10 years, something like that, without any transplant meds. And he swears by it.
Wow.
See, that's the important piece that we always got to remember. And that's why I encourage patients to go forward and get your testing done, get on the list and give it a try. Because everybody's different. You want to always prepare yourself for the worst, but you pray for the best. And there's always hope. There's so many of us doing well, you know, and you just got to try, because there's no such thing as the perfect treatment option. There's risk involved with transplant. There's risk with home dialysis, and there's even more risk with in-center dialysis. So, and that's the one that everybody's doing. So
my sister's still doing it.
Right.
22 years.
Yeah. So we always got risks involved.
Jared, you do the hit show Warriors Quest every Wednesday from 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time till about 9:30 p.m. Has anyone reached out to you? Because I know we talked and you said many warriors reach out to you and just share many things. Have anyone reached out to you and said that they weren't a candidate for transplant and they have to be on dialysis for the rest of their life?
Well, I do advocate for somebody currently who was communicated by their doctor that they couldn't be on the transplant list, and it's because of her, as far as I understand, because of her age, and so I'm not sure if she tried to get a second opinion from another hospital, maybe they look at it differently. But right now I do advocate for somebody who is not on the transplant list, and the doctor has told her that if she wanted to have a transplant, it'd have to be from a living kidney donor.
Really? Have you ever heard of such thing done?
I can't hear Jared. So could you give me a little recap?
So what Jared said was he's advocating for someone who's not on the transplant list. because of their age. And the doctor said the only way that she could get a transplant if it was from a living donor. Have you ever heard of such thing?
How old is the patient? Because different hospitals have different criteria. I know that I always tell patients, if one hospital tells you no, you go to another one, because
Mm.
they all have different protocols and criteria. Some people do have a 75-year-old age limit, but other
Yes.
hospitals don't. They'll give you another elderly person
Right.
kidney.
Yes, I
If
heard of
you're
that.
over, if you're over 75, then you get another older person's
Yes.
organs. So it all
Right.
depends on the protocol and the criteria of the institution.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not very
Yeah, so you
gentlemanlike
never
to
give up
ask
though.
a
If
woman's
one
age.
place
So I've
says
never
no,
asked her
another
age.
place will say yes. I know people who are overweight and
Mm.
they couldn't make the
Oh yeah.
criteria. They had to lose weight. And then
Yes.
another institution said, "No, we'll take you like this."
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that, Jared?
No, I haven't. But and I'm not sure what her age is. It's I've probed a little bit by asking questions to try to gain some perspective. But she
Mm.
may be 76. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the idea that I get, because she says that the doctors the doctors talked about the next 2 or 3 years, and so I think she may be around 76, and
Wow.
so
Mm-hmm.
that that's what the transplant hospital has that's what her nephrologist has said to her. So I'm not sure if she sought a second opinion, like you've said, Don, that maybe she'd get a different opinion, and maybe she'd
Yeah.
be able to maybe find different information. It's interesting to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So,
Or go
so,
to another state or get on a different list.
so
If see,
Don, go
we're
ahead,
lucky.
Don. Go
No,
ahead.
I was gonna say we're lucky in New York and some other states. We have like 5 or 6 different transplant facilities,
Yeah.
within our state. But some states only got one.
That's
So
true.
but
Some
but
state
you
got
got to
one.
put you just got to get out there, go to another one.
Mm-hmm.
One person's no is somebody else's yes.
Mm-hmm.
I ain't mad at you.
So Don, you've been involved in the kidney disease field for what, almost 30 years now?
Yeah, I've been in the game for 27 years with kidney disease, and I've been advocating for 25 of those years.
Now, why do you think that there's not much talk about preemptive transplant in the African American community?
Well, first to commence, I think that one of the things is we kind of do that to ourselves because we don't go and seek out medical advice early. We find out
Mm.
that we have kidney disease in the emergency room. And so preemptive transplant is out of the question at that point. To those of
Wow.
us who do find out that we have kidney disease in stage 3 and stage 4, if we continue to follow up with the physician and we educate ourselves, you'll find out about preemptive transplant. But it's just not something that's readily made available to us, for, again, here we go with the socioeconomic, reasons. People don't go to the doctor until they absolutely have to.
Mm.
And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of us just find out it's just too late.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think that if we start taking better care of ourselves, we go and get those checkups. When you hear
Please.
something is a little off, follow up. If they say you need to see a kidney specialist, don't just go home and say, "Oh, he said I need to see a kidney specialist." Call a kidney specialist, and
Yeah.
and find out what's going to take the next step.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't want to blame it on the man or, people is holding us back, and I'm not doing all of that. I'm saying that we have to take responsibility,
Yes,
and make our health important to us.
Mm-hmm.
you do.
Jared,
You do.
you come with a different perspective. You're the brother-in-law of a kidney warrior. How she's doing, Alma?
Yeah, she's doing great. She's doing really well. I mean, she
Mm-hmm.
takes her immunosuppressants, anti-rejection pills, and she's relatively healthy. I mean, she has had maybe a cold, maybe a couple colds, maybe a flu or something, but
Mm.
she's relatively well. And she's unbelievably has just a great attitude. Just
Mm-hmm.
a really good attitude, and and they just had to. Their daughter was visiting for the holidays. Their daughter goes to uh, U, U, UTEP in El
Mm.
Paso, Texas, because they own a home in El Paso, Texas. Even though they live in Abu Dhabi, they own a home in El Paso,
Oh, that's
Texas.
awesome. And speaking
Yeah.
of that she's in Abu Dhabi, how hard was it for
Mhm.
her with her transplant journey and getting on the list? Did she run into any complications, being that she was in Abu Dhabi and I guess her transplant hospital was in Boston?
Right, it was in Boston. Yeah, and they spent a great deal of time trying to choose or pick, which hospital they wanted, and they finally decided they wanted that hospital, Boston General Mass, I think is what it's called, and
Mm.
they she had to fly all the way to Boston, from Abu Dhabi, and after the transplant, she stayed there another like 3 months or so after the transplant and was set up in a really nice, more or less suite, for the next couple of weeks. And then she stayed in a hotel for the rest of the time. But
Mm.
Wow. That's awesome. That's
yeah, I mean,
awesome.
she, she's very careful. She's from Ethiopia. And so
Mm.
she has a really good diet already.
Mm.
She eats really well, so it's been a better transition for her than maybe other people, she just because of the kind of food she already tries to
Wow.
eat, and the foods she already tries to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
And she does a great job. She really does. And the really cool thing is that, you know she's just an inspiration. She really is. It man, I every time I think about the story, I get really emotional. I really do, because she's one of the most kindest, one of the most sweetest, women you'll ever meet. And
Wow.
and
Mm-hmm.
you may not meet her, ladies, because she's very private and she's
Yeah,
not
I
really on
heard.
Facebook that much. But if you
Mm-hmm.
look her up, it's Amel Brown, and that's my twin brother's wife, and she's just really sweet, from Ethiopia, and just one of the kindest, sweetest people you'll ever speak with.
That's awesome. Don,
Yes.
I got some literature in front of me, and I just wanted to ask you your opinion on this to see if the process is this simple. So, the literature says the process to get a kidney transplant usually looks like this. Talk to your kidney doctor. They'll help you figure out if a transplant is a good fit for you. Two, your kidney doctor can help you get a referral to a local transplant center. Three, the transplant center will evaluate if you're a good fit for a transplant. This takes a lot of tests and doctor's appointments, as there are many things to consider. Four, either find a living donor or wait until it's your turn on the list. Five, get your surgery. Is it that just that cut and simple 5 steps?
I mean, when you look at, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, they pretty much gave you a White Castle instead of the Big Mac that it really is. But you
Mhm.
know, pretty much that's the basics of it. But that
But that's the
transplant,
basics, but they
yeah,
don't tell you that each one of those steps there could be hiccups along that way.
No, they didn't. I
Okay.
didn't. I didn't hear you say that.
Well, and of course they're not going to say that, but do
Hiccup,
you
hiccup,
think?
hiccup.
Do you
You know, I
think?
wish more people would tell people about the hiccups, though, because if they told people more about the hiccups and then they didn't happen, you know, then they actually are they feel much better about the process. You know, just
Yeah.
Because they said step 4, either find a living donor or wait until it's your turn on the list. Now we got more than 100,000 people on the
There you
list,
go.
right.
There you go.
and they talking about wait your turn, and
Wait your turn.
then you got people like Jared and his brother advocating to find a living donor for someone.
Yeah.
And you got many people doing it. And I guess my point is they make this look really simple.
Well,
And if
that's
it's
what I was telling you. They just, they oversimplify these things.
They really
You know,
do.
when I was when back in the
Cut and
90s,
dry, right?
they would show these videos of a person packing their little suitcase, getting ready to go to the hospital for the transplant, and then the next scene, they're out tossing the football with the kids and everything. And
Right, they're out on a
I
picnic or
expected it
something.
to be like that. When I had my transplant, I thought I was gonna come home and I was gonna go outside and play with my daughter and everything. And man, I couldn't walk for weeks, and I had that Foley catheter coming out of me, and then after they pulled the catheter out, I was wearing
Don't go there.
depends for weeks because I was peeing all over everything. So
Yeah.
they're not going to tell you all of that. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I'm telling. That's why it's so these shows like what we're doing here. That's why these things are so important because you got to get the real story. You cannot have this false sense of security, thinking that you're going to jump up out of the bed with this kidney and you're going out and you're going to ride horseback.
Right.
You can't. It's disillusioning. And
It
when
is.
when it doesn't happen like that for you, then people got anxiety and depression, and they're thinking they're doing something wrong, and they're blaming themselves.
What's wrong with
and
you?
everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
They don't tell you that you're going to need a visiting nurse or you may need a home attendant, because I never had a home attendant in my life. I didn't want one, but then I noticed I couldn't do certain things and I had to agree. And they would not let me out of the hospital until I did, because once they found out my husband passed away, they said, oh no, we can't just let you go home like that. And then
you can't go home like that.
Yeah. Then
Wow.
The transplant didn't keep me in the hospital. It was something that went wrong. I hate to say it, with hemorrhoids. And I kept telling them what to do and they wouldn't listen to me. So that made me stay longer. I would have been out. I think I ended up there 2 weeks.
Dawn.
Yes.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think, well, no, let me ask Jared this question. Jared, do you think some donors may regret their decision to give an organ after it happens?
Wow.
Well, that's a tough question to answer. I think there's probably a small percentage, because everybody may look at it differently, and and just like a recipient may have problems after transplant, the donor also may have some issues, and after having had those issues, if they persist, then that person may certainly start to maybe have some sort of resentment, maybe even feel poorly about the decision. So I certainly think that may be. I think that I don't know what the percentage is, but I certainly think that's very probable.
Absolutely. I mean, Dawn, this is a surgical procedure, right? And there are risks to surgeries. Whether you're a recipient or a donor, you're still at risk.
Absolutely. I mean, I know they do it laparoscopically. Well, I believe they put them in laparoscopically, but I think they remove them laparoscopically as well. But I mean, there's always the chance for bleeding, infection. There's a whole myriad of complications that could arise. You're removing an organ, so I mean, there's complications that could arise, and I would imagine that that's why the government has made provisions in the Medicare Act that for a person that donates an organ, if they would turn around and need an organ, that they would go directly to the top of the
Right,
list.
and just
This
skyrocket
situation
back
must
up.
have
Thank
arisen,
God.
you know, it must have arisen in the past in order for them to make a provision like that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And now they have legislation that recently came out that for the donors that need child care costs and
Yeah.
their salaries, they're going to be able to retain those while they're
Yeah.
out convalescing after donating an organ. We have to remember that these people are electing to have a part of their body removed, and there
Yes.
are absolutely complications that can arise as a result of that. So
Hmm.
provisions have to be made for these people, and I'm
Absolutely.
quite sure that if a
Sure.
person has complications, after donating an organ, they would probably feel some kind of way, or I don't want to say regret. That's a strong word, but yeah, I'm sure
Mm.
if somebody is feeling bad afterwards or they're sick and they need a kidney themselves, they would regret giving it to
Oh yeah.
another
Mm-hmm.
person.
Because something
Wow.
negative came out of it.
That's human
It
nature.
is.
Yeah.
People have emotions, and some emotions just may sway that way. I I would hope that with everything, Don, you said it earlier, and I think you said it very well, is that you have to have hope. You know what I mean? And even if something bad happens as a living donor, I think that you still have to have hope, and you have to learn from whatever it is that happened and just move forward, and just
Mm-hmm.
learn from it. You know, uh,
Keep
you,
going.
you just have to continually have hope, because
Mm-hmm.
man, what kind of world would it be if we didn't have hope?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Don, as we about to close this broadcast out, we've been on an hour, and I thank you guys for coming on and discussing this very important topic. But Don, as a kidney disease advocacy community here on Facebook, where do we go from here with kidney transplant?
I think that we have a responsibility as advocates to collect as much information as we can from whatever resources that we can get information from, and we have a responsibility to the patients that trust us and believe in us to give them the truth.
The truth.
Mm-hmm.
I think that
Yeah.
we should always encourage people to make the right decision for them, to always consult their care team, to have
Yes.
a good relationship with your care team, and to ask questions. Don't just accept whatever's given to you. Ask why, and ask as many questions as you need to until you feel satisfied with the answers that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And we just always have to remember that we're servants, as advocates and as people who are in the forefront broadcasting information to people. People depend on us to give them the whole story, to give
Amen.
them the correct
I
information so that they can go
I
back and
agree.
ask their care team questions so that they can make the right decisions for them. And that's my motto, and that's what I try to pride myself on, giving the best information that I have. And if somebody asks me something and I don't know, I'm going to find out, and get back to
I know
them
that's
on it,
right.
because if somebody asks you a question, it's because they trust you and they trust your counsel, and they want to know the answer. And that's what we're responsible for. It may not be in the prettiest package, or it
Mm.
may not be what they want to hear, but we are responsible for giving the patients the whole story.
Mm-hmm. So Lisa, Where does the Lisa Baxter Show go in 2020? What can your fans look for pertaining to kidney disease information and advocacy?
Well, I would say that they can definitely look forward to more resources, more
Nice.
resources to help them, more resources to get them where they need to go. Because you can't just live with this disease or this issue. You have to do something about it, and resources is needed. Okay, my
Absolutely.
kidney has failed, but I'm hungry at the same time. Which way is the food? Which way is the rent? Help me pay my rent. I'm not working right now. I'm unemployed and I'm on dialysis. The Lisa Baxter Show is going to give you the 411, the 1000, and I'm gonna give you everything. I'm coming with every barrel this time. So look forward to new stuff, better stuff, more guests, and always the truth. And much love.
All right. Oh, absolutely. Jared, how about Warriors Quest? What can we see from the Warriors Quest in 2020?
Well, I'm going to continue to try to have as many guests that are looking for a living kidney donor as possible, and I'm to continue to give people hope, continue to make sure that their story is told, so that we can, hopefully hear not only that Jared and Jeff have helped somebody find a donor, but I'd love to hear that Warriors Quest, that somebody's watched a broadcast from Warriors Quest that has led to somebody, wanting to donate to somebody. And so that's my hope.
That's good. That's good, man. We're definitely looking forward to seeing a lot more guests coming on the show. Hate to see more people come on, because that shows you how serious the problem is. But at the same time, at least we have a platform to help them look further to find that gift of life, or spark someone to maybe donate to someone else,
right,
in their area. This is really big, and I would never have thought that I would be on a panel of us talking like this 2 years ago. Somebody has to do something. I mean, we just can't sit back and let this just keep going and say dialysis is the
like
norm.
The Justice League. This is like the Justice League of
Right.
America.
I'm not going to accept
the Super Friends, right?
Right. All right, guys. Well, we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in at this late hour. I know people have to work tomorrow, so I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us. Jared A. Brown, host of the Warriors Quest, Lisa Baxter, host of the Lisa Baxter Show, and none other than Don P. Edwards, advocate and CEO of New York State CKD Champions. I got it right?
You got it right.
All right, guys. Thank you for watching. We see you again. Thanks, guys. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.